Bogdan Oprea. I'm the CIO for Agency Insurance Company. We are an insurance carrier in the PNC for Mid-Atlantic, serving the 3 states area, Virginia, Pennsylvania, Maryland. We do work a lot with independent agents, so we do have an independent agent workforce, as well as our insurers that we need to serve via various portals. So all in all, I think we are about 150 to 160 people company.
Okay. And do you have an agency model where you're allowing agencies to broker your insurance?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah.
So we don't sell direct; everything goes through independent agents.
And so pretty much your entire force is local, is in the Mid-Atlantic?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
So those 3 states that I mentioned.
So what is your take right now? What changes have you been pondering for a couple years now, that now you're like no longer in pondering mode, you're going to be executing?
Well, it's all about enabling our agents to be successful in the digital age, right? Because in the past, your typical independent agent had market knowledge, you're serving his local market, but now with the introduction of new digital technologies, more mobile app, more digital marketing, people are trying to look for their insurance need across a broader aspect, or a broader number of channels, so to speak. So what we are trying to do is to enable those agents to be digitally capable and access and provide their services to as many people as possible within their own communities. So it's a human aspect, but as well as a digital aspect. So we've been working a lot of enabling digital capabilities and enabling them to do their work remotely, which in turns, now that we are in the situation with the COVID, works out well.
What does it mean to be you probably don't know this, but I got my start in the insurance industry back in the early and mid 90s, and we were an agency model with Northwestern Mutual Life, and so we had sometimes brokered other insurance companies, and so digital transformation at that point was quite different than it is now. What are brokers asking for these days?
Well, right now everybody's looking at ease of doing business, right? It's obviously price, it's still one of the most important aspects, but the other component of this is how easy is it to access your products, how easy it is to work with you as a company, how responsive are you to the agent demands via various channels, being phone calls, emails, chats, and all the other connectivity capabilities that are in place right now. So that's kind of how the landscape is evolving over the last, I would say, 5 to 6 years.
That's interesting. So do you find that you're spending a lot of time on the process, quickening back-end processes and limiting human interaction, in the sense that like they're handing off paper, or is it more on the front-end product gateway that goes down to what their iPad or their laptop?
I think it's for sure on both ways, right? They do have their own agency management systems that we integrate with remotely to download their commissions and deck files, so on and so forth. But also on the interface ourselves, we are trying to make it as easy as possible when it comes to the amount of knowledge that the agent needs to use your system. Because if you put in place a system that is too complex, then that agent is going to have a hard time selling your product. So you need to make sure that your product is as easily sellable as possible, meaning less clicks, less inputs, pre-populating fields, getting data from various sources, that kind of stuff.
I see. So if the insured information from the insured might be on a, do you have a AS400 yet? Is there still?
Yes, we still have one of them.
Oh my gosh. That's great. What a classic. So basically if Bob Jones was an insured, you would want to and it was in the AS400, the core record, you'd want to get that record down to pre-populated down to the endpoint as seamlessly as possible.
Yes, yes. And coming to the S400, we are using it as our system of record, but all our operational processing, we are actually doing it data lake, so to speak, where we get our data from our cloud databases, S400. We have some other data sources that we connect to. We bring everything within this data lake, and we do all the processing there and push it back to S400 as system of record.
Oh, okay, and it goes back into the S400. What is the data lake do you use?
Actually, it's a Microsoft technology. It's Databricks, I think.
It's probably like probably like old-fashioned biz server, right?
Yep. Yep.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Well, I always wonder how much time people spend, IT leaders spend at your level on, you've heard me use the term offense and defense, and when you're servicing the end customer, that's clearly offense. I'm curious how much time you spend these days with now working from home. Is the percentage of time shifted on offense and defense, or where do you find your predominant work focusing?
Yeah, I don't think it changed. I think it's about 60-40, 60% on offense and 40 on defense, maintaining all our systems, making sure everything works. But we do have a good development team and good product. We are doing agile development. We are structured at the product level. We have product managers that we partner with our developers. So we do quite a bit of Devops also. So I would say it's around 60-40 when it comes to that.
60-40. Now, so as a company that of your size, how do you handle DevOps these days? Like, how are you making it when you don't have endless resources to throw at app dev? How do you pull it off? Like, what's your strategy on how you staff and bring new products to bear and with sophisticated technologies?
Yep. Actually, we are in the process of migrating from the on-prem DevOps to Azure DevOps. I would say about 20% right now of our projects are going on with that pipeline. And we did start doing training on our folks in order to drive the adoptions of these technologies, especially within the network team. We did have some of our pure network folks doing Azure classes, learning more about DevOps and how do you manage. We are using Kubernetes for our technology stack. So there is quite a training and learning path that we've been pushing our teams to go through, and we are getting more and more adoption within those technologies. But we do have a fairly big code base right now that we cannot port instantly. So while we are cloud first, so all new products that we are creating go typically within the Azure development using the latest methodologies, API gateways, and Azure databases. Some of our core systems are still legacy systems that will take probably 5 to 10 years to migrate to a modern platform. So it's a long-term process that we started about 2 years ago. So it's slow moving, but we'll get there.
So is it a process of decoupling code and chunks and logical chunks from the I mean, I guess essentially it's all coming off of an old mainframe. How do you approach it?
Yeah, it's we are looking at it from a modular perspective.
Okay.
So we have claim modules, we have underwriting modules, we have ops modules. So we are looking at those and trying to move as much of that functionality that our current team members are doing in those systems into our new systems that are web-based and leverage the latest technology, with the hope that in, like I said, in 5 years from now, there will be less need for manual or direct access to the S400, and everybody can do their day-to-day jobs within a modern interface and a modern system.
Do you find that the next 100 days, I've been talking about this from the 100-day leadership challenge, and I'm as we return back to work, and as people are coming back, I often wonder how many of the strategic plans are completely done. There's no more strategic anymore. It's 100% tactical, and I'm wondering what's your thoughts on the next 100 days?
Well, right now I think, at least in our case, we are focusing on a few core strategic initiatives, right? We are looking at how do we manage what we have and how can we improve our workflow and processes in order to maintain what we have and also enhance it for the next year. Because at this point, we don't know how long this virus will be with us, right? Until a vaccine comes and all those other stuff. So we are prioritizing projects within our broader strategy that allow us to enable more people to work remote, right? One of our core processes right now is how do we rely less on printed paper, but also be compliant with various state regulation on notices and insurance cards and all that stuff. So that's one of our key initiatives within the broader strategy that now bubbled up to the top, and now all our resources are focused on this initiative, and we see great progress just because we don't spread ourselves thin across all the other initiatives that we had before. So we are targeting more direct projects that have a tactical view, if you may, but they are also part of our broader strategy on what we want to be 5 years from now.
Got it. So very, very tactical, but mapped to the strategic outcome that you want 5 years from now.
Yeah.
Just making some notes here. That's great. That's great. I've often thought, a year in the future, I ask leaders to, because a lot of people get stuck in the current commotion, and they can't really see out of the current commotion. And I look at a lot of the interviews I'm having with leaders like you is giving people a gateway into looking back on themselves a year in the future and being able to see a year in the future when there is no commotion and we're back to being, normal human beings again. And I'm wondering what your thoughts are as you look back, pretending we are in the future, and look back and it's been successful. How do you see that? What's made it a success for you?
Well, I would say something to the effect that from an IT perspective, we didn't see any impact on the business, right? So, well, even before we are having some remote workers within IT, our flexibility was higher than within other groups from working remotely. Now we're 100% remote. But the goal here is to have or to minimize the business impact that we have from an IT perspective. So if you may, when we look back, we'd like to see that there was no difference between how it was before and how it is after, or how it was during the pandemic. So that's one of the main goals here. And so far, I think we are achieving that target. And we are also gearing up to be even more successful from a efficiency perspective.
Yeah, that's what I love to hear. I just think there's never been a better time to be an IT leader and to be top of the food chain for an IT leader. There's never been a time to put a stake in the ground and say 5 years from now. I'm so glad the pandemic happened, because we were able to, it forced as a leader into thinking, okay, what are the things that must get done to hit these strategic goals, and how can we do this with remote workers, no remote workers, less staff, more staff? Like it forces levels of thinking. And guess what? The CIO is the one person that spans the whole company and can help facilitate that. It's a great thing of beauty when you think about it.
Yeah, no, especially if you have the support of the business on doing this and focusing, which is in our case, we have great support across the board. I think you can achieve great things. And this pandemic, it's forcing you to focus even more within the essential projects that can help you drive the business forward. So,
It's like an 80-20 analysis. It's like Paretos Principle. What's the 20% that gets us 80% there? And it really is. Sometimes I think our brains need that in a world of complexity.
absolutely, absolutely. And sometimes you are thinking is like, why didn't we take this exercise of prioritization before? But you have different groups within the company. Everything is urgent, and now with this in place, I think you have a clear clear path for the whole company forward that can help.
Well, I think I looks like someone joined us here a moment ago, but I think it would be good to. I think it's good to wrap up now, and I appreciate you for coming on. And as we wrap up, do we cover all the major themes that you wanted to cover? Is there anything in particular that you wanted to summarize with?
Yeah, no, I think everybody should look within their own groups and kind of keep in mind that there is also a next phase after this and plan ahead of time, because what you don't want is to only think tactically for the current times and don't plan for the future, right? Obviously, the future can be different for different companies, but it's exercise worth having within your groups, within your company, and try to see what's the next step after this.
100%. Well, I really appreciate you for coming on, Bogdan, and sharing your advice. I'm going to put links to LinkedIn for people to reach out and connect with you if they have questions. And I look forward to getting this live for you and for our listeners.
Sure. Thank you for having me.
Okay. Take care. See you. Bye, Bogdan.